Hello and welcome here again live to the World Crypto Network, to the new show, Read Rothbard and Use Bitcoin. Today we are joined by Joseph from Vaultoro. How are you?
Good, man, good. It's actually Joshua. But it's probably a derivative of Joseph somewhere along the line. I don't know.
It probably is.
Hey, great name for a show, by the way. I think those two things are imperative for any parent to teach their children.
It really is. That is what new economics is all about. If you want to be entrepreneurial, if you want to know how economies function, read Rothbard and use Bitcoin. It's probably going to help you a lot.
Yeah, and I think this is the great thing about crypto, actually, that I find one of the strongest points is that we're getting back to the point where talking about what money is being a dinner table conversation again, or a party conversation. For a long time, I mean, through the 60s, 70s, 80s, even earlier, it really lost, ever since it went off the gold standard. In fact, just before it went off the gold standard, it was a very important topic to talk about. People constantly talked about what money is. Should we go off the gold standard? Shouldn't we? And it was a conversation piece. And ever since that, it's kind of gone. And the generations preceding that, after that, really have no clue about money. And when you ask someone, hey, where does money come from? What is money? They say, well, it comes from my boss. They really don't go much further. And in fact, even Marx, even economists like Marx back in the day were obsessed with the boss worker relationship around the economy, instead of what the heck is money? Where does it come from? What is it? Why? The fact that it's created out of debt, out of nowhere, into a fractional reserve system where where banks then print way more than they have on deposit is absolutely ludicrous. And so as people get into Bitcoin, what I really love is that they start analyzing, and not only Bitcoin, all these other shit coins as well. They're looking at them and saying, this is an interesting, because there are some, there's some good shit coins out there that have got some good concepts. They're trying to do something else. They're an economic experiment, and it's all about that. And I consider myself more of a competition maximalist than anything else. But it's really good, because as they study these coins, they're like, oh, well, Bitcoin's got 21 million ever to come into existence. There's a cap. There's this and that, and or maybe this coin over here, there's this many billion or this many million to be released at this sort of curve, and that's good or that's bad. Now, when they start thinking about USD, they start thinking, wow, how many are there in existence, or how many will there ever be? Okay, they can print them out of nowhere. What? And they can keep on releasing them. I mean, if that was a cryptographic coin, it would just never take off. People would just be like, nah, the screw investing in that. It's never going to have any value, because they just can print them, let alone the fact that they print them as debt, So as they get released, so imagine a coin being released that if I release these tokens, you have to give me 60, and whatever the percentage is back, 3% back. So I give you 10 of these tokens and you have to give me 13 back. Like, you'd be like, this is crap. What kind of a crappy system is this? So this is fantastic. And this is the core centerpiece of crypto that people are learning again about this stuff. Fantastic.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Education is key. It always is. Because it is a war of the mind, and it is a war of ideas, and ideas are really powerful, and they have to be good ideas, right? And of course, an idea of a sound money is a quite beautiful one. And if people have this mentality of being on a sound monetary system and economy, that fosters low time preference. That means building up for the future. Being living prudent, not overspending, not over-consuming, but investing and saving and building rather than destroying and going into debt. And this is, of course, a monetary phenomena, basically, because, well, it is money, right? It is the economy. But because it fundamentally messes with time preference, it messes with your head. And if you have a weak money, well, that develops a weak mentality. But if you have a hard money, a sound money, that is based fundamentally on logic and reason, right? That creates a rational mind. So the educational aspect is key.
Absolutely, absolutely. Talking of that, I recently gave a talk in Barcelona at the World Data Ethics Forum, and Julian Assange's lawyer was there, and Julian Assange even sent a video in because he's got no internet access at the moment, the poor sod. And anyway, what I wanted to say was that in my talk, that was basically what it was about, that money kind of is data, and the ethical thing behind that, behind the creation of this data and the movement of this data, is really, really, really important to think about. That it's not just something we take for granted, but something we really, as a people, start to engineer instead of a couple of old men behind hidden doors. And this was a really, I had such interesting conversations, and sadly it was an event that there wasn't that many people at in terms of audience size, but the speaker quality was sensational. I mean, not not just because I was talking, I don't want to say that my speech was sensational, but the other speakers were definitely amazing. And it's kind of sad because some of these, a lot of these blockchain conferences that are going on are so scammy, yet they have massive amounts of turnout. They have all these sketchy ICOs doing this, bananas on the blockchain, and it's really sad to see when you get a really good conference like that and not the biggest turnout.
Well, yes, that is fundamentally, unfortunately, the case, that there are, well, a few Bitcoin maximalists and probably a few more shitcoin minimalists. And I think a combination of both is quite good. And as you said, I really like the term competition maximalist, because that is what it's fundamentally about. And
Yes.
that is what got me excited in the space first, was the competition. Even before I got into Bitcoin, I was like, hell yeah, that's competition. That's good. We want to have that. And then I started checking out not just Bitcoin, but all the other coins.
Yeah.
But then, well, sooner or later, you realize, oh, wait, no. This is money. There is something called a sound money. It's the shit that is unpolitical, that is uninflatable, that is unconfiscatable, that is censorship resistant. Oh, and yeah, that is Bitcoin. Nothing else, sorry.
Yeah.
And if there would be something else, great. And probably there will be, hopefully. I want to, progress, and I do not want to stagger. But right now, I'm like, oh yeah, Bitcoin is just too damn good.
It is
good
very,
luck trying
very
to overtake it.
Absolutely, and it's got a vast network effect. People don't realize the sheer, first of all, the sheer amount of hashing power that's behind the Bitcoin network. People don't realize how massive this beast has become. I think someone calculated it. I think this was already 3 years ago. So it's come a long way. But 3 years ago, if Google turned on every piece of computing hardware and pointed it at the Bitcoin blockchain back then, it would have only added 1% hashing power. And of course, ASICs were already out. So, it is a bit of a weird thing to say, but because, these are general computing chips, but that Google has. But nevertheless, they have a lot of resources, and it can only add 1%. Now, 3 years later, we've jumped orders of magnitude of where it was back then. So, for the sheer size of this network is unimaginable. Exahashes are unimaginable. People can't really grasp that term. I often talk to people about some of these large numbers because a lot of people can't grasp these large numbers. They can't really get their hands on. And we talk about trillions, for instance, like it's like, oh yeah, $1 trillion. Oh yeah, America's 6 trillion in debt, whatever it is. And this is something that people really can't get their head around. So a good way of explaining a trillion to really get your head around that number is 1 million seconds, right? 1 million seconds is 11 days long. 1 million seconds is 11 days. A billion seconds is 32 years long. So from 11 days to 32 years. Now, a trillion seconds is 32,000 years. So the exponential curve is very, very difficult for humans to really get their heads around properly. I mean, of course, mathematicians get it a lot easier, but the common person really can't grasp it. So when the news pumps out these large numbers, it's very difficult.
Well, and that's fundamentally the unit bias. It happens in every shitcoin, XRP, Litecoin, and of course the dollar and the euro and all other shitcoins, right? If you print it, ad infinitum, if you just create a huge unit of it, it seems like it's cheap.
Yeah.
Well, that's because it is. It is a cheap currency. It's not a sound currency.
No.
Well, fundamentally, the unit itself doesn't matter. What matters is how it changes and who gets this new changing money, who gets the new money supply.
Yeah.
Because if a few people get it, well, they do benefit quite a lot. And if you follow the money, right, if you look who actually receives the newly printed currency, then you can decide, is this a sound currency or is this a shitcoin? Most of the time, it's a shitcoin. Hey,
Max, is there a chat window here where listeners are chatting away on? Maybe we can, if anyone else wants to chime in on this interesting conversation. It's always fun.
There is, yes. But they're not chatting, so guys.
Oh, they're not chatting.
Be active. Come on.
They miss out. You're missing out, folks.
Exactly. That's something that I realized during conferences, especially this weekend, the Baltic Honey Conference, Honey Badger Conference, is that interaction is what we need. That is the most fun. That is when you go out and intermingle with peers and fellows who are striving for the same goal, right? Sound money. And if you like that, then interact. The people here are actually quite nice.
Absolutely. In fact, we just launched a little Discord channel for the Vaultorians because they're very sound money people. They're all about the gold and the Bitcoin. And funnily, the good thing about this community is that it wasn't this ridiculousness, this silly, sorry for my language, but bullshit that someone like Peter Schiff constantly comes out and says, like, I like Peter. Don't get me wrong. I think he's done a lot for the industry and he's done a lot for education. But man, what's with constantly fighting crypto? Guys, we're working together against one goal, and that is sound money versus crap, versus toilet paper, helicopter money. We're on the same team. And this nonsense of, Bitcoin's bad, gold good, or gold's crap and Bitcoin's good. Come off, guys. We're talking about assets that are found into existence, precious metals and precious numbers that are found and spent into existence, instead of ridiculous fiat debt nonsense that is controlled and controls you and me, not me.
Precisely. You can be controlled. You can continue using a shitcoin, fiat money, weak fiat money.
Yeah.
Or you can decide to opt out, right? Decide to use Bitcoin and decide to use gold and silver. That is important, right? We all should have a couple Rothbard silver coins lying around somewhere. That's always nice.
Lovely, man. Nice. Pulls it like a boss off the table. Yeah, no, absolutely, man. You're spot on, and I think it's happening more and more. I'm seeing, if especially in play, I know Venezuela gets trumped out as like the crypto go-to country to say, hey, look, this is but it really is. I mean, this is a serious situation that's happening in Venezuela. One of our team here at Vaultoro is Venezuelan, and he, he's sending money back to his parents and to help to help them not starve. Like it's dire, folks. It's absolutely dire. But one thing I really loved was to see that even in this bear market, even if you bought Bitcoin with Venezuelan Bolivar, okay, I forget it, but the Venezuelan shitcoin.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what it's called. It's a
if you bought Bitcoin in December, you would still be better off during this bear market because their currency is falling faster than Bitcoin, and that's extraordinary. That to me is an absolute phenomenon, and I got to say that it's just starting to really happen now. The more and more news I'm seeing is that crypto is starting to be used more and more in Venezuela. You know, it used to be a few years back, we'd see stories of Venezuelans using Bitcoin. It's crap. We had a small, tiny group of enthusiasts that were just sort of, you know, in a little echo chamber. But now it's really starting to happen. And as much as, you know, we talk about Bitcoin and stuff, there are these funds like the Dash DAO that have been actively paying for people to go down on the ground and teaching people, and that's just great. And again, this is crypto as a whole going and really teaching people and getting people excited and moving stuff. And there's a lot of lightning stuff happening down there as well. You know, being on that Lightning Hack Day, talking to people, saying that there is Lightning Network is for me really what's gonna kick it off, because no one wants to pay over a dollar for a fee, as much as we like to say it's for hodling and it's a store of value. But really, we want to see it as a currency, and the Lightning Network is that currency. It is phenomenal. Just using it really is great. I just can't. I just was so happy during that Lightning Network day, because it really, the dream that we were talking about during the whole fork debate, or during the whole block size debate, was all very theoretical. And seeing an app paying a gumball machine within seconds, a micro Satoshi, that's less than a Satoshi. Phenomenal stuff. Great stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, the Lightning Network is, of course, amazing. Really use it. It is fantastic. But before that, you mentioned the Venezuela and what a horrific situation that is. And, you know, if you have anyone who has lived through a hyperinflationary currency, you realize that is nothing easy. That is nothing to joke about. This is economic warfare, and it is brutal. It wreaks absolute havoc over not just the economy, but also humans. This is literally killing thousands and thousands and millions of people if this hyperinflation really happens.
Yeah.
You know, it happened in the Weimar Republic. It happened now in Venezuela. It happened in Zimbabwe. This is an economic law. You cannot avoid it. Expand the money supply, and you'll have malinvestment. Overconsumption leads to boom and bust, leads to inflation that destroys everything. And now, as we even see that, what we now see is the speculative attack, right? The Venezuela currency is well, going to shit. It's burning to the ground. And they keep inflating it, going into more and more debt. What is that money being used for? To buy Bitcoin, right? Because it's sound money, it's hard money.
Absolutely. This is a really interesting, I saw a report from, it was one of these think tanks. I don't know where it was. I can't remember, but it was talking about attack vectors on small countries and their economies. And one attack vector, which I found fascinating, was that people would go to their bank, get a loan, and put it into Bitcoin, and then default on that loan. And the thing is that the bank couldn't confiscate the Bitcoin back or the loan back, because it's Bitcoin, right? So and they don't care about the black mark on their name, because they just use the Bitcoin to get by until it scales. I mean, this is I don't recommend doing this, folks, but it's an interesting attack vector, because what happens is that as the economy starts collapsing, more and more people come in and start buying Bitcoin, and it's almost like a short squeeze. Is that people are like, oh man, it's going down, so more people get out, so more people get out, more people get out, and it's this rush to the bottom for the fiat currency. But a massive boom into the new economy. And it's like, man, I better get in now because everyone else is rushing through this door.
Absolutely. And Hayek calls it a rapid displacement. This is going to be really brutal. And those that hold on to weak shitcoins are going to really suffer, literally suffer.
Yeah.
So it is really important that we get as many people onto the sound economy as fast as possible, because they will greatly benefit. And that is good, right? We want to reward entrepreneurs who strive forward and build something new. And that's exactly what Bitcoin is doing. It is building, right?
Absolutely.
And you mentioned the Lightning Network, and it is phenomenal, right? So could you just maybe talk a little bit more about how we are building this new second layer?
Yeah, so Vaultoro, we were the first exchange, I was happily to report, that accepted Lightning Network payments, like first proper order book exchange. And what's really cool about that is that we can start taking orders off the order book while still controlling the keys as people. So users can, instead of uploading Bitcoin into the hot wallets of our hot wallets, and then they place an order because that's the speed, people can actually have their Bitcoin in the Lightning channel on their phone, controlled by them, and place an order in the order book by taking an order. Of course, if you want to make the market, if you want to place an order in the market, you still would need to use the hot wallet. But this is a really fantastic thing where you do not need to trust the exchange anymore. And the more of that, the better.
Oh, absolutely. And this trend is amazing. We need to have exchanges that give more power back to the user.
Absolutely.
Centralized custodial exchanges are not the way to go.
No.
These are banks, and oftentimes fractional reserve banks.
Yes.
Well, thing is, Bitcoin is a precious good. It is of course, scarce good, but even more importantly, a rare good, something that is limited in quantity and that cannot easily be produced, right? Mining is difficult. So if you as a custodial bank, as a custodial exchange, lose Bitcoin, good luck getting them back. They are expensive.
Absolutely. We constantly tell our clients and our users, don't use us as a wallet. Really, I mean, we've been around for 4.5 years. We've never been hacked. We've been really good, but it's always there as a central honeypot. And the thing is, I think crypto vaulting facilities or banking facilities, I hate to use the word bank because it's a different paradigm, because banks actually have the right to create money out of nowhere. Unless they hypothecate Bitcoin by fractionally reserving them, they don't really have that right. They can't do that mathematically. So it's a different thing, having a custodian in Bitcoin. But and sadly, there's way too many people that use password for password. And that's the problem, right? Is that we have a lot of people that aren't security conscious enough to hold their own Bitcoin. And this is unfortunate. I think this will change over time, but I think it'll be a long time coming. And I think it really is all about the user experience, getting more and more people used to using hardware wallets. Definitely first step up. Spot on. There you go. Nice. Wow. What's that one?
That's the cold card. It is amazing. Open source hardware, open source firmware and software from the fellows that made the Open Dot, the CoinKite.
Really? Yeah.
It is fantastic.
Man, those crew are just epic, aren't they? Wow.
Yes. First batch is out. Get it as long as it's there. Not many left.
Yeah, right. Get it while it's hot, folks. But I mean, my point is that, even though there will be all these great tools that people can use, there's still the crack smoking grandma problem. You want even them to be able to use and secure Bitcoin, and this is very, very hard, and the majority of people just find it very, very hard to secure. So I think the good thing is that it's a huge market opportunity, as Trezor, as Ledger, as those guys have seen. They're selling like hotcakes, and they're getting better and better and easier to use. So I hope eventually we won't need custodials, and we'll have only decentralized exchanges. That will be a wonderful world.
Oh yes, precisely. And you bring up the point of security, and that is of course important. This is a bearer instrument, right? If you lose access, well, you lost it. It's gone. Won't come back.
Yeah.
So you really have to be careful. And of course, it's always an inherent trade-off: security, usability, and privacy, right? It's tough to have everything, all at once, but it's doable. And especially regarding usability, a phone wallet might be probably the best way to go because it is super convenient, right? You have it with you all the time, and you can easily use it wherever you have internet connection, or even better, a mesh network like Opena.
Oh yeah, perfect, beautiful.
And even for security, yes, hardware wallets are the way to go. Even better, probably paper wallets, truly offline created, air-gapped wallets. By the way, you can do that on here as well.
Beautiful. Wow, nice.
Yeah, you connect it to a battery pack instead of a laptop, and then you have a fully off the grid device, no internet connection.
Man, what'll I think of next, eh?
Right. But fundamentally, and that's something that I talked about with Francis Pouliot on the Riga Honey Badger conference, was that I've never heard someone actually getting their phone wallet hacked. Actually, the private keys being leaked.
Do you know that I actually did that search the other day, that exact search, because people are like, I don't trust phones, I don't trust my phone, yada, yada, yada. Actually, phones are way more safer than laptops or computers in general, because the phone is built in a sandbox mechanism where every app is kind of sandboxed off, and it's far safer. It is far safer. And I could not find, I searched and searched for a case where someone's lost private keys by an app stealing it from another app. Unless I did find one, but they had rooted their phone.
Oh yes, and what I really, really like, and that I also found out at the Honey Badger conference, is there is a app called the AB Client, AB Core, which I think is a horrible name. However, you can on this device run a Bitcoin full node on your phone. You can either have the entire blockchain downloaded if you have roughly 200 gigabytes on an SD card, which honestly isn't too much, or you can prune it. Right? You can say, I want to have these specific blocks where I have my UTXOs in there. And then I want to have the, let's say, 1,000 most recent blocks, right? The last couple of days. That way, if I trust consensus, if I trust a 1,000 block confirmation, right? Then I have at least, some security, some trustlessness on your phone. Yeah. That is amazing for a couple of gigabytes.
Amazing. And this is really the key for emerging markets, small countries in Africa that really aren't well connected. They're not wired. They're running purely on GSM networks. And so, this is the key for running nodes in such places. Yeah, absolutely. That's fascinating. I didn't realize that. I mean, there are real problems with the phone network. There's a vulnerability called the SS7. This is a hack that got discovered here in Berlin by the Chaos Computer Club. I think it got released here, if I'm not mistaken. This is a protocol that allows SMS and voice to go across multiple carriers around the world, and I think it's most carriers use this protocol, and it's totally open and hackable. It's totally hackable. And basically, I saw demos of someone in Berlin hacking a phone call between random people around the world to Australia, and they could hear the voice in real time. They could see text in real time. And this is why it's really, really important to use data on these mobile devices, because data, encrypted data, I should say, end-to-end encrypted data is fine, because even if a hacker sees the stream through the SS7 vulnerability, they're not able to decipher it, and that's absolutely key. So I generally make phone calls using. I know it's even if it's WhatsApp, you're still a little bit better off, because you're not going to get to the general hackers that can jump into SS7, and hacking SS7 really isn't a big deal. So folks, if you if you care about privacy, use apps like Signal, use apps that encrypt data on the way end to end, and this is really the whole Snowden leaks and everything really pushed developers to have more privacy in data, and this was all talked about at the World Data Ethics Conference as well, the forum there in Barcelona. It was absolutely fascinating.
Oh yes, there's lots of cool stuff coming, and I'm really fascinating, and that is something that I really want to talk with you as a gold bug, so to say, about. So I had, of course, right here this Rothbard and a Mises coin right here sitting next to me.
Nice, very nice.
And I was like, okay, private coinage is cool, right? You can have cool stuff like this. I know that this is high quality gold because I trust the Mises Institute, right? I'm quite sure that they will not rip me off. I hope so.
Well, there's still trust involved, but yeah, I mean, the thing is, actually, there's not that much trust involved, because gold, well, there is, but from reputable dealers, you have to look, and this is a really important thing, you have to check that these dealerships have auditing procedures. And what the good thing about the gold industry is, there's been countless scams. If you think Bitcoin's full of scams, the gold industry's had 3,000 years of them. And so we as humans have become very, very good at building procedures and protocols in place to follow gold as it gets to the end user. And that the biggest part of that is to look out for who's auditing, who's checking the purity of these metals. And it's these large auditors like BDO International. They audit the vaulting facilities we use. You want to trust big ones, big names, ones that are in like the top 3, top 4, the big 4 auditing firms and stuff, because they're a billion-dollar industry that have far more to lose than to gain from cheating some smelting firm or something, or colluding with someone.
Absolutely, right? And that is fundamentally one problem with gold, is that it's hard to verify. Not so with Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
Run your full node. I verify every single coin that is on the network, right?
Fantastic, man.
So in that sense, of course, right? Bitcoin is quite useful. But then thinking about private coinage, I was specifically thinking, well, a coin is something that exactly verifies the quality, right? But it is also kind of the user interface. It is the user interface for the user to the money, the pure gold or silver atoms, right? That is the money base. And if you apply that to Bitcoin, then Bitcoin wallets, like these hardware wallets or even like software wallets, the user interface to the money are like private coinage. And this means that when we have competing private entrepreneurs, soft and hardware developers, to compete on the market of providing a high quality user interface that is secure and verifiable, private, of course, in the case of Bitcoin, and usable. And that then brings amazing creations like, for example, the new green address wallet, or the Samurai wallet, or on laptop or computer, the Wasabi wallet, or of course in the hardware wallet space here with the Cold Card. These are all private entrepreneurs competing against your attention and your customership to use their open source software, which is verified by everyone in the network. So I do think that this analogy of private coinage and software wallets and hardware wallets is quite fitting.
button, because one of the questions here is Hilbrand, closing a channel which has performed hundreds of payments, will that be a batch transaction on chain? And Max answered it absolutely correctly that no, it is a one single transaction that gets basically what a Lightning Network payment channel is just a smart contract with kind of a multi-sig smart contract where everything that happens to that smart contract is like a little mini ledger. It's a mini ledger that's happening in a smart contract that's keeping track of who owns what. And when you close that contract, the single transaction goes whoop and correlates all that down, settles all of that final amounts owed into one transaction.
Precisely. And you speak about smart contracts, and well, guess what, fellas? This is a true smart contract.
Yeah.
This is no decentralized application. This is no CryptoKitties. This is a smart contract.
Yeah.
Pierce. This is what it is about. This is what programmable money really means.
This is what Nick Szabo was talking about when he invented the term smart contract.
Exactly. This is the real shit.
Yeah, when you're opening a channel, you are starting a contract. And that contract is a smart contract. It's a contract with another channel operator. And you are basically that's what makes it smart. What makes it smart is that thousands of nodes are running the same, have got a consensus around the same contract. And so, a lot of people ask me what a smart contract is. And at the end of the day, it's just a computer program. But what makes it different is that many, many nodes are running the same computer program. So you cannot hack every single one. And this is important.
Exactly, right? And then also stuff like Ethereum has a state machine, right? Well, that is fundamentally also what Lightning Network is. As you said, it's a mini ledger. Well, this is another virtual stage on top of Bitcoin. We're no longer messing with the state of the entire consensus network, right? That requires 10-minute block times. That requires individual valuation on hundreds of thousands of individual free nodes. And now with Lightning Network, we can, what do the Ethereum fellow calls it? Sharding, right? We can split up the state, but we don't do it on the base layer, right? On the base layer, we provide security, and then we leverage this base layer security to secure the current state and to secure the smart contract that is then actually providing a quite strong and quite valuable service.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really good, folks. I ask everyone to really look into it and don't just watch YouTube videos. Really go and read some information about this stuff, because while it does get techie very fast, actually, it's still there are resources out there that explain stuff in a simple method. And I say don't just look at YouTube videos. YouTube videos are still sensational for the normal person if you don't need to know too much. But I guess why I'm saying that is because people will hear some argument about that. Just bigger blocks are great, and that's all you need because of XYZ. And now you can have you don't need confirmations and this sort of thing. I mean, it's just not true. You do need confirmations, and because they are double spendable. Without a confirmation, you can double spend, whether that's on Bitcoin Cash or Bitcoin. And so you really want to have confirmations. And this is where the Lightning Network steps in, because what you do is you set off, you have a wallet that's your spending wallet. It's your checking, it's your account where you spend on a daily basis. And you load that up with a small amount of Bitcoin that you can spend down at here in Berlin at room 77. You buy a beer. We actually did the first on-chain, mainnet Lightning Network payment for a beer a couple of weeks ago, and that was fantastic. But this is, it's just, I don't know where my conversation was going. I've sort of lost track, but it's fantastic. That's all I'm saying.
Well, you bring up a perfect point, right? That there's a huge difference between accepting a zero confirmation and accepting a change to the current state of your payment channel in the
That's
Lightning,
where I was going. Exactly.
right? Because on chain, if you do a normal Bitcoin transaction and you have a zero confirmation, it can be reorged, it can be double spent.
Yeah.
And you have no defense against that, right?
Yeah.
However, if you use smart contracts, you can actually manipulate a unspent transaction in a way that it is a adaptation to the state of a multi-signature in the base layer that has been securely nestled in the blockchain, right? With countless and a lot of proof of work accumulated on top. And then if you have this, you can, at the end, when you want to close the channel maliciously, you have to wait a long time. So you postpone this zero confirmation, right, to a long time in the end to be secure. And you build up the security both from the opening transaction nestled in the blockchain and from the potential closing transaction, which is nestled in the end lock time or check sequence verify. And you use both of these security parameters to gain a security to change a zero confirmation state of a payment channel, something that is not confirmed on the Bitcoin blockchain, but has the potential to do so. And that is why Lightning Network is no ICO or shitcoin. It is not a new token. It is Bitcoin, but not on the base layer, but in a smart contract.
Yeah, it's sensational. No, you brought up some really great points there, Max. Absolutely. I think what will happen is as these tools start coming out, people will have that little aha moment. And just like with Bitcoin back in the day, you really the most aha moments I got was when I sent some Bitcoin to someone. When they actually sent some Bitcoin back to me, that's when they went, oh, even though they'd read about it and oh, what's this Bitcoin thing? And I think it's the same with Lightning Network. Once you have used Lightning, once you've actually seen it being used and experienced the ridiculous speed you get, a friend of mine here in Berlin actually just recently did a test. Where they were doing a basically table tennis, tennis Lightning channels, Lightning Network payments between two nodes, blah, 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 and checking the transaction per second speed. And they were getting like 60 to 80 transactions a second between a single node. Now that's a single node. That's a pair of nodes, right? So imagine a network of thousands of nodes. That's millions of transactions a second.
And we are in beta, my friends. We are in beta, right? This is early tech. Give us a couple more months, let alone a couple of years, and see how this efficiency grows, right? This is permissionless innovation, and cool stuff will happen.
Yeah. I mean, I was during the whole of the end of 2000s, just before the fork, right? Bitcoin was being spammed to hell. Whether that was spam or real, it doesn't matter. What matters was the blocks were absolutely backlogged. Fees had gone through the roof. We couldn't. We actually had zero confirmation transactions on the exchange back in the day. 4 years ago, we launched with that, and it was we did it in a way where we made it as secure as possible by watching trusted nodes and seeing a couple of parameters. Let's say if the fee was high enough, if the number of main trusted nodes around the world had actually gotten the transaction, and it's not sitting by like some weird sketchy nodes that are just sort of popped up out of nowhere. And we would say, well, we'll let this one through at zero. But it just wasn't safe in the long run. It was 4 years ago. Bitcoin was still very, very niche. Now we're getting mainstream. Now we're getting very large number of people trying to smash any which way they can get crypto, hack the hell out of it, right? So it really is to the point where zero confirmation just isn't something that should be trusted. It's just not something that should be done. So the main thing that we have to do now is do transactions when you don't need the Bitcoin instantly. Do like you're at home and you know, put some money in your wallet before you go out. This moment where you fill the Lightning Network channel, that's what you want to do. And then once you go out and leave, that's when you can do the zero confirmation like stuff, because it's instant.
Precisely. And you know, you bring up a lot of this cool invention that is coming here. And one thing that is really exciting is the move away from SPV wallets that run on Bloom filters, which query for specific transactions on a full node. And so the full node knows exactly which transaction this SPV client is interested in. And now with Lightning Network, I think it was Rosebeef who developed the Neutrino client, which is a SPV wallet, a wallet or a node that does not have the full blockchain, but it is now querying from a full node like this one, the several blocks. And with the accumulation of several blocks, the anonymity set of possible transaction or UTXOs that this SPV client is interested in is increased a lot, which makes it quite a lot more private. So this is amazing how inventions for the second layer play out, benefiting everyone.
Whoops. Absolutely. And we talked about this a little bit before the show, is that what's happening with the Lightning Network is it's allowing people to have like the Raspberry Blitz and these full nodes, and also run a full node and actually get rewarded for running a full node, because they want to. But you can, by running a full node and having a channel open, you can verify payments, but also be paid small routing fees. And this is fantastic, because this, for the first time, incentivizes node owners instead of just miners. And you know, in the past, we've seen the power of incentivization. We've seen the Bitcoin network go from 0 to exahashes. And we talked about the difference between millions and billions and trillions before. Well, exahashes are ludicrous. People cannot understand how big these numbers are of security, and so that's what incentivizing does. It gives the ability for people to go out there and try to make money from this really obscure thing called hashing. Well, now you get people going out there trying to make money from routing and having full nodes.
Exactly, and that is super interesting. And I like Nick Bhatia's work on that, the time value of Bitcoin, how we can use these routing fees, which are fundamentally, right, payment for a service provided. And the service is to have an open payment channel and a liquid payment channel. That is the service that routing nodes provide, being online and always available for accepting and routing through payments.
Yeah.
And you know, fundamentally, because it is a price for liquidity, this is kind of an interest rate. It's of course not a complete copy from what we have in fiat, because, well, Bitcoin doesn't copy, it actually innovates. It does copy, but that's open source, right? But there is a lot of innovation happening.
A lot.
And so how do you think can we use this kind of interest rate in future economic calculation?
Oh man, that's really, really good observation. You know, I think we don't even know what will happen because of this. We cannot comprehend, just like people that couldn't comprehend in the late 90s that we'd have extensive social networks to a ridiculous amount. That we don't know what this technology will allow. But exactly like I said before, the incentivization process of running these channels will spawn a flurry of creativity. a flurry of new innovation. And you talked about liquidity. I think it's getting to the point as well. Once the network grows so big, like, when was the last time you logged onto the web, typed in www.whatever.com, and you got an error saying could not find routing path, like, even though it exists? Like, it doesn't happen anymore. Do you know, it used to happen, right? The internet used to not be connected enough. Now it doesn't happen anymore, ever. Once you connect even to a small DNS server, that DNS server will propagate you very, very quickly, and routing paths will find you. And so this is what's going to happen, is that more and more and more as this network grows, you will have endpoints that you can connect to, and you won't have these problems where routing paths just don't happen. And not only that, as we saw on the Lightning Hack Day, and also while I'm at it, there'll be a Lightning Hack Day in New York coming up in I think it's next month or something like that. Vaultoro will be there. We'll be there live streaming it. So, make sure you get down and see it. But what I wanted to say was that what we're finding now is that people are building technologies that when you pay through the Lightning Network, it doesn't just send the one transaction through. It'll split it up into tiny amounts and scatter it through the network. So it'll always, and then consolidate at the endpoint. This, along with the fact that we're using onion routing, this puts Bitcoin back into not back, but puts it into privacy coin category. Because now we're getting to the point where we are actually truly fungible. There's still ways to analyze it, to watch the network, to see amounts sent and consolidate at the same points. But, this is the very, very first step, and it already gets us a step closer to privacy. So companies like Chainalysis and stuff will really, their days are numbered. And quite rightly, I think it's been good, the progression, that it's allowed governments to go, oh yes, well, Bitcoin, and it's sort of allowed them to trust the network a little bit more by saying, oh look, it's totally transparent, and any drug dealer would be an idiot to use this, or anyone that's wanting to stay private. I shouldn't have even put drug dealer in there, because it's just absolutely normal to want to stay private. If you're a business owner, folks, you don't want your customers to know where you source the televisions that you're selling and how much markup you're putting on it. You don't want your employees to know exactly how much each has been getting paid, because it causes massive problems. So there's privacy in normal business, right? So, but yeah, it really does put privacy back into Bitcoin, and now we'll get bulletproofs and all this rest of this good stuff coming in, which will really secure that dream.
Oh, absolutely. Again, we are in beta, right? Just a couple months on mainnet. This is cutting edge, and we already see it on other second layer solutions, like the Element sidechain, right? We see confidential transactions. We see confidential assets, right? This tech is being deployed right now.
Yeah.
And it will come to Lightning Network as well. I do believe that the BHB network that Giacomo Succo is working on, which is basically color coins on Lightning, right? Assets on Lightning, that uses confidential assets as well, as I believe. Already on top of Lightning. This is kind of like the third layer already. What?
Yeah. This is something that I didn't think I'd see this soon. For folks that don't know, you can't have a colored coin on Lightning Network, really, before RGB, right? Because when you send a Bitcoin through the Lightning Network, how colored coins works is you get a Satoshi, you basically mark it, and you follow it. So it's here, it's there, now it's here, it's over there, now it's here. So you can have a non-fungible asset. So you can attach a crypto kitty to this thing or whatever, and you can then say, oh, I have ownership of this thing, this crypto kitty or whatever you want to follow, and so you can have these color coins, right? Now the problem with Lightning Network is that think of a Lightning Network like a bar tab, and when you pay the barman, you pay him at the end of the night. You have drinks all night long, and then at the end of the night you settle. But not only that, you can pay other people in the bar. through the barman. So when I send one color coin to the barman actually doesn't send that color coin on. Because it's an on-chain thing, he or she will then take another coin that they've got and send that on. So you go boom and then boom. So you cannot follow a single coin through. But yeah, the RGB protocol sitting on Lightning is figuring this problem out. So we can have non-fungible tokens on the Lightning Network. And this is an absolutely fascinating evolution.
Yes, and again, this is true innovation, right? This is true permissionless innovation. And what I'm really curious, though, because I do think this is a issue that still needs resolving in Lightning. Maybe you know a bit more about that. And that is the fee estimation for the closing transaction. Because as I know, you need to, in the hash pre-image, right, in this hash commitment, you need to have a transaction that already has the UTXO signed, that already has the transaction fee signed. And so you need to, in advance, estimate or guesstimate, right? You don't really know the transaction fees that are going to be applicable when you want to close the channel. But you don't know that, right? That could be in a couple days, that could be in a couple months, that could be never if Lightning Network works. So how do you think, or is this a problem?
Yeah, it's I think it is. I think it is a problem. Yeah, but it amazes me all the time, like colored coins being on Lightning. This is a problem that I thought, wow, that's pretty unsolvable for now. But who knows? Maybe there'll be an arbitrage network that you will pay a fee and they will cover it if it's different, or some sort of some sort of hedge mechanism where you can say, well, I've got this, I've got a separate channel, or you could bump into that fee. I really don't know. It's a very, very interesting question. Yeah, but I'm sure people far cleverer than me are working.
Oh yes, absolutely. And of course, Lightning Network is fundamentally used, probably going to be a payment mechanism, a way where you can transact Bitcoin quite easily. It is still Bitcoin, right? It is a layer, not a reserve currency. And this will bring a lot of usability, especially in everyday smaller transactions. And yes, as you said earlier, people value the store of value of Bitcoin. Fundamentally, yes, that is the base layer. We need that. Right? You need to hodl a couple Bitcoins, but it would be really nice if you could spend them, especially if you no longer have any fiat, right? And you don't want to use credit cards or any of that nonsense, but want to stick with true sound money, then Lightning Network is going to be quite nice. So you as an entrepreneur, how are you going to use the Lightning Network other than the fast order book, as you mentioned?
Yeah, interesting question. It's on an exchange level, I think that's the really interesting part, is allowing people to buy off the order book. But I think apart from that, I'd like to see people being able to use colored coins and RGB and stuff like that within Bitcoin to be able to use transparency on exchanges. So when I launched Vaultoro, I launched it because I lost a lot of my money in Mt. Gox, and I wanted to build the most transparent exchange in the world. That was my goal, because I thought, right, well, actually, the first thing I wanted to build was a decentralized exchange because I was that pissed, and I wasn't pissed for myself. I was pissed because the Bitcoin revolution or evolution I was seeing was getting slandered by the press at the time, and at the time it was important because it was a very smallish community compared to now. And would be slandered by the press for saying, oh, the CEO of Bitcoin has run off with all the cash, or, just shitty headlines like that. And I wanted to build a decentralized exchange because there was Insta Wallet, and there was all these services that were basically running off with funds or going into natural Ponzi schemes where they didn't even mean to start a Ponzi scheme, but then they lost or got hacked, and then they tried to figure out how to, through fees, get their money back. And so I wanted basically to say, right, this is enough, building a decentralized exchange. And what happened then was realize that, well, the op return codes in Bitcoin weren't good enough to build a decentralized exchange. So let's build a centralized exchange that, but focused purely on transparency. Let's focus 100% on the transparency, because Bitcoin is ultimately transparent, right? You don't know who the people are, but in terms of numbers and what addresses have got what, and it is really quite visible. So we built this protocol called the Glassbooks protocol, and that allowed us to, for everybody to audit our cold wallets and then check that against the cold wallet addresses. But and check. We basically, how it works is we give everyone an anonymous ID. They can log out of the system. We publish every anonymous ID, kind of like a Bitcoin public address, and they can search for their anonymous ID, look at how much Bitcoin they should have, how much gold they should have, and then they say, oh yeah, that's how much I've got. And we don't know that they're checking, so we can't change that stuff. And yeah, it's up on transparency up the top there if you wanted to have a look. And then we then allow people to check that, and then check the sum of everybody's holding, and then check the cold wallets for that. So what I'd like to see is, instead of just keeping a ledger of everybody's holdings like that, what I'd like to do is insert every single trade that happens into a blockchain, into the Bitcoin blockchain, or into a Lightning Network channel somehow, into colored coins. I'm still trying to develop that, but I'm also thinking about an unhackable hot wallet. This has been on my mind for a very long time. It's something that I've been working on. It sounds ridiculous, unhackable hot wallet, but what it would be is improbable hackable hot wallet, where we would have a multi-sig, and a bot would have the second key, and if a user uploaded some Bitcoin to us, we'd insert that into the blockchain. Then if they traded, we'd insert that. Every movement we'd insert, and when they would go to withdraw, the bot would check the blockchain and go, right, this happened. They should have this much, equal to or less than or more than the amount they're taking out. Okay, they do, according to the blockchain, sign, and then they would sign. So if we had an internal vulnerable, and most exchanges, usually internal problem, because these companies get too big, it's a big nightmare like that. So even if someone internally got in and changed, got into the database and changed the amount they've got to, thousands of Bitcoins, and then hit withdrawal, the bot would just see it and go, huh, what? No, that doesn't add up to the blockchain. So things like this, using the Lightning Network, because inserting every single thing into the actual blockchain would be too expensive. So having a Lightning Network that we're using RGB or something like that would be very, very interesting. And yeah, so it's quite fascinating. Why were you being told to smile?
Yes, this really is fascinating, right? You can do so much. It's insane. And to be honest, I love the simplicity and just balls out amazingness of having of the exact amount of your gold, up to 3 digits of a gram, right? And then to the Satoshi. Yeah, really, to the Satoshi. We know exactly how many Bitcoin are in there.
Yeah, and if you show the client list, if you click on that there, you can see they're the anonymous IDs. So you can go down and find yours and see logged out, so we don't know you're checking how much is in there, and then you can see the sum of everybody's holdings. And of course, we've got some in the hot wallet, and some days the hot wallet's got way more than it should, because a lot of people are depositing or withdrawing. So but generally you can see, okay, they've got this much in cold, which is fairly safe. Yeah, and that's really where, and I'm also working on the fact I'm working on a way to open the hot wallet system as well. The hot wallet system's hard because everyone has the ability to create as many addresses as they want. I think we've capped it at I think we capped it at 1 a day at the moment because there's some jokers that got on there and just kept on generating Bitcoin addresses, and that didn't just blows out in the back end. So we stopped it to 1%, one Bitcoin address a day. But I would like to somehow figure out how we can make the hot wallets transparent as well to show the hot wallet balance, the hot wallet addresses somehow. And we were looking at using a hierarchical deterministic wallet, but it is you can show something like a public address for a hierarchical deterministic. The problem is it's quite insecure because if one of the addresses gets compromised somehow with a private key, which is very hard anyway, but if it does, you could potentially compromise everyone. So this is something that we've stayed away from, and we've just sort of stuck with opening up the cold wallet address, the main thing.
And that is a conversation that I had for a long time with Matthew Majinskis from the Crypto Voices podcast about fractional reserve, and if it is inherently a good thing or a bad thing, and if it inherently is either immoral or moral, and also leading to credit expansion and the boom and bust cycle. And he defends the fractional reserve is okay as long as this is voluntary, right? Which I kind of think is a good point. But I don't even need to ask the question, but are you a fractional reserve?
No, I mean, absolutely not. I don't want to be in a fractional. I don't want to fall into a Ponzi scheme. It's a nightmare. I mean, I could not think of anything worse than being Mark Karpellis's shoes. I mean, I imagine you'd have to look over your shoulder every moment of your life. A terrible life, terrible life. Why would you want it? Why would you want it? Fractional reserves, that's a really interesting topic, whether it's voluntary. But I don't think you would want to voluntarily be in a system that does fractionary reserve. We could go on about, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? But the fact is, you'd say it's a good thing if it's voluntary. But yeah, why would you want to? Maybe it's good for the greater good, but most people won't do something for the greater good when it comes to personal finances. They won't sit there and use a fractional reserve system for that. It's a ludicrous system, and in fact, this is why we built the Glassbox protocol, so you can see to a certain extent that we aren't in a fractional reserve. That's the main point. And initially, we had what were called warm wallets, and a warm wallet was our own funds that were in a single address that basically had the amount that were in hot wallets in the warm wallet in a single address. But the problem was we needed the same amount in reserves as there are in the hot wallets, and that just blew out. Like during December, we were getting, we had like a lot of Bitcoin in the hot wallets, in the cold wallets, and on the system, and our warm wallet just wasn't enough to cover that. So it's a tricky one.
And with these many addresses, right, you use up quite a lot of block space. And how have you experienced the scaling drama and the issue that block space is quite expensive, right? There's a precious resource. So how are you using this resource in an efficient manner, and what are your costs in doing so?
Yeah, it really became a problem. It became a problem at during high peak moments, because what a lot of people, they would say, hey, why are you charging $40 per transaction for on-chain transaction fees when I'm paying $13 worth of Bitcoin, and it's still not getting through. And it wasn't like we were charging that and keeping some. We weren't charging it and making a profit. We were literally charging it and sending it out to the network. The reason is that exchanges have get a lot of different coins from different places. We in the early days, we had miners. I was thinking we still got miners mining directly into gold. So they mine Bitcoin, they send it, and we have an instant order function turned on. So as soon as the Bitcoin gets 6 confirmations, we place the order in the order book and buy some gold for them. And so we'd have these little dust transactions. And what a lot of people don't realize is when an exchange sends something, sometimes the transactions have a lot of inputs to the one output, and this creates a large transaction. So we would have to pay a large amount. Now, what we did about that was during the high peak times, we actually said, folks, you can wait, and we batch every transaction at the end of the day and send out for a lesser fee, or you can pay now and pay a lot more to have it straight away, but you will have to pay a larger fee. So that's how we got around that.
Okay, and how can you be more efficient when using stuff like SegWit and native Bec32 SegWit and stuff like batching, which is already available?
Yeah, I mean, batching we've done forever and a day, since the early days. Send many, the command is, and it's a great mechanism, and SegWit is also a great step forward with Bitcoin. It allowed us to incorporate bigger transactions again, and allowed to get rid of this backlog. We are a small team, and it did take us a long time. We're still working on that, but it's basically every day we're looking at how to streamline these on-chain transactions until the Lightning Network is really, really not so reckless.
Well, yeah, that is great, and I have talked to Nopara quite a bit, and he is, of course, the amazing developer of the great Wasabi wallet, which we have right here. And one of the core features of the Wasabi wallet is that it is a coin join wallet. So it uses coin joins to obfuscate, to increase fungibility. And this is fundamentally also transaction batching. So do you think that exchanges like Vaultoro could integrate something like coin joins and coin mixes as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The thing is that with our transparency protocol, it's kind of important to do these things, because while we have this amazing transparency, it does potentially allow other people to try to figure out how much a certain person has. Even if they don't know, they could follow on chain, and then they could figure out the anonymous ID of that user. It's very, very difficult, but people could potentially, if they had enough resources and wanted to. So by doing this, it would allow for more transparency while keeping the exchange transparent. And this has always been a goal of ours, is to make exchanges as transparent as possible. And I give talks around the world about transparency because I think it's super important. If we do not basically build transparency and use transparent, if we as users don't use transparent exchanges, and we as a community don't become more transparent in terms of exchanges while keeping users private, then one day we're going to have like another Mt. Gox collapse somewhere. Imagine if the size of Bitfinex or something, and it'll be catastrophic. And what will happen? The government will step in. They'll step in with a massive big grin on their face saying, yes, this is the chance we've been waiting for. We're going to regulate the hell out of this industry now. And this will basically force startups like ourselves, like hundreds and hundreds of startups around the world, basically will stop these startups from being able to compete with the legacy banking structure that we're trying to compete with, because the regulation will just basically drown us in paperwork and cost us millions in licensing fees.
So have you already experienced some of this pushback from regulators, and do you think it will increase in its intensity?
Yeah, it will. But this is because I think that's why it's super important to always use and demand transparency from exchanges as the users, so that we as an industry self-regulate. I mean, we have the self-regulation thing is really, really important, because we publicize, or exchanges should publicize, what transparency protocols they've got in place, and release that information and have protocols in place that they also talk about, and have best practices. So it's really important that we do that, because regulation is only going to grow. The good thing is that we do live in a world of anarchy where different countries are competing with different countries in a marketplace and we saw it with the Red Flag Act. We're seeing it now in Bitcoin, where if you create a massive regulatory burden, people will just leave. You'll just have a brain drain, and the new economy will flow somewhere else. So governments are very careful not to do that. So that's given me hope that we won't be regulated out of hell as an industry.
Oh yes,
Into hell.
and this regulation is a fundamental weapon and tool by incumbents, right? By those that already hold a strong market position and sometimes even monopoly grants, right? And this regulation is fundamentally, a monopoly. It is the exclusion of new entrepreneurs in the marketplace, and that is the classical definition of what a monopoly actually is. And the cool thing is that Bitcoin fundamentally breaks this. Bitcoin is anarchy in money. Bitcoin breaks each and every type of exclusion quite radically. And that's why I decided to write my bachelor thesis on this topic.
Nice.
Because this is fundamentally the philosophy of Bitcoin, right? It is the radical and the pure free market. Yeah. Do whatever you want as long as you harm no one. As long as you don't break consensus, do anything. Right? Yeah. When you break consensus, well, then you have to be convincing rather than forcing. But fundamentally, no, it is the radical, pure, and free market.
That's right. And if you do hurt someone, then it's up to good old-fashioned police work to bust that person, and not controlling the monetary system to bust everyone when needed. And that's a core principle.
Oh, absolutely. And it is also about self-regulation. That is why the Bitcoin community is so toxic. We need to be toxic because we will have to police ourselves. We have to make sure that we do not harm each other. And we make sure that if someone is being harmed, that there are consequences. Yeah. Although, if some Bitcoin gets stolen, well, censorship-resistant money, irreversible money, that money is gone. Yeah. But at least if we know who the thief is, well, then we push him out. We just decide to no longer do business with that person. If we have someone like, for example, Craig Wright, or maybe even Roger, who really is just a bad actor, or companies like Coinbase even, then you just decide to, well, no, we're just no longer going to use and accept the service. Yeah. And we only use these services which we, the consumers, the individual and sovereign nodes in the network, decide to use voluntarily. Yeah, competition keeps the bastards honest. That's what it is. We have Propagol here in the chat asking transparency and privacy ? Yeah, well, I mean, this is basically what Bitcoin is, right? It's totally transparent, but it's totally private in terms of the use case, if you want it to be. And you can have transparency and privacy. You really can. It's about obfuscation, and this is key. Exactly, right? It is a tool, programmable money, and you can use it in quite fascinating ways. And again, there are quite nice tools to preserve your privacy. CoinJoins in the Wasabi wallet is one version. Paynim reusable payment codes in the Samurai wallet. Stuff like Dandelion or the Ricochet gossiping protocol. There are different tools that you can use if you want to treasure your privacy. It's not about hiding anything. It's about not having to share anything. And there's a big difference. And it's your data, it's your financial sovereignty. And you have the right to not share this if you so choose.
Absolutely. I mean, who would open their bank account and let everybody walking past the street see? Who in their right mind would do that? Even if you've got nothing to hide, you don't want to do that. You don't want to share that. And so, it is really, really important that people stop with this ridiculous notion that privacy is only for drug dealers and, you know, child pornographers and bad actors. It is not. It is, privacy is a fundamental human right. You know, these bad actors, like you know, extreme drug dealers or arms dealers, they also wear shoes. Does that make shoes evil? Should we just get rid of all shoes because they're, you know, then the arms dealers won't be able to run away? It's
Exactly.
you know, it's a
It's a
ridiculous
tool.
notion.
And criminals, quote unquote, live on the edge cases, right? They need to be as efficient as possible because they run at the margin. And that means that they have to use tools. And those tools that criminals use might be quite efficient tools. And not saying that people like Adam Back and Peter Todd are criminals, but if you hear them talking about how excited they are to improve the security and privacy of the Bitcoin network and how urgent it is for them. And Adam Back told us several times that he's so glad that now the scaling debate is somewhat over, right? We realized, okay, second layers. Now he's like, okay, now is the important stuff. We need to make this private. We need to have stuff like coin joins implemented more readily. We need to have stuff like confidential transactions soft forked into the protocol ASAP. And store signatures and other aggregations, masked, for example. This is really important, that we need to make this currency fungible.
Yeah, we absolutely. So you've very well said. Very well said. Yeah, it's interesting. Peter Todd and actually Peter Todd and Greg Maxwell developed a really good, this was years ago, this was back in 2013, developed a really good transparency protocol for exchanges. Peter Todd's done some great work in this space. And as much people hate on Greg Maxwell, you know, it's ridiculous. He's done some great work in this space too. I mean, he's one of the original cypherpunks as well, and we shouldn't just diss these people. They've just got their beliefs and they're doing what they're doing. And again, competition is maximum. That's what we should be, competition maximalists. And look, the fact of the matter is that what I don't like really isn't that there's big blocks. I don't mind. Whatever. Do what you want. This is great. Test it out in the marketplace. See if that works. You know, it doesn't matter. What I care about, though, is pretending that something is something else. Like by saying that this is the real Bitcoin and changing the logo slightly. And this is, for me, really, really quite awful, because you're dealing with people that are non-technical, that are getting to Bitcoin for the first time. And, you know, they're trying to pump other people's you know, by using other people's income, and this sort of starts getting into, you know, they used to say, oh, Bitcoin's a Ponzi scheme because you need new people to come in to make the price go up. Well, this kind of becomes a Ponzi because you're really kind of tricking people into your area, into your blockchain, and I don't appreciate that. I don't like it. And I'm not saying that because you know, I haven't heard it happen before. I'm saying it because I have heard it happen. I have heard people, I've given people advice, friends have given people advice, and they've somehow said, oh yeah, check out bitcoin.com, and then ended up downloading, you know, and buying Bitcoin Cash instead. And that's fine. Look, if you want to buy Bitcoin Cash, go for it. That's great. But please, guys, let's not keep warring and tricking and you know, playing stupid games. If your technology is better, then be proud of that. Stand by your technology and don't trick people into it.
Exactly. And that goes back to transparency, right? Be transparent in what you're doing. Open source everything, right? And this is then also that something that goes back to what you said earlier about hating on you know, the developers. Well, these guys are agorists, right? They do shit. They are cypherpunks. They write code. And if you think that they're doing a bad job, well, nobody is stopping you from doing it better. So if you are hating on them, well, don't just yell at the wall. Go out and do something. Do something better.
Exactly. Yep, absolutely. And it doesn't matter what you do. If you're a graphic designer, then, you know, make a better interface.
Precisely. And cool thing that is already or about to come out from the fellows at Blockstream is the Green Developers Kit, which is a software development kit with all the cryptography stuff in a library in the backend that you can then build upon a wallet by simply taking care of the user interface. So any user interface designer can now create a secure Bitcoin wallet by using this Green Developers Kit, which is fantastic.
Yeah, great. And is that Lightning capable? I'm sure it is from Blockstream, right?
It will. It is not yet, but it will. I hope quite soon, because fundamentally, right, Lightning Network will be probably the next pretty much base layer for the future Bitcoin.
Yeah, it will. You know, one thing, and I'd like to hear your opinion on it. How do you think we can get? Because at the same time, you know, we're kind of starting from scratch a little bit with the Lightning Network for adoption in terms of shops, in terms of you know, retailers and all these sorts of things. How do you think we can best do that? Do you think we start again like we did in 2010, 11, 12, 13, and really go out there, go to every shop? Hey, you should accept Lightning Network payments. Get them a wallet. Or do you think it'll happen naturally and we should sit back?
I think it will, you know, be kind of both. There are a lot of economic incentives that drive you towards using and holding a sound money, especially for merchants in accepting them. You know, the guy who got the 10,000 Bitcoin per pizza back in 2010, that was quite a good entrepreneur. So, you know, entrepreneurs benefit from having a sound money. So money is the currencies for people that build shit, right? So entrepreneurs and merchants, that's what they love, getting paid in Bitcoin. You just need to show it to them. And you know, one thing that I just think in general for merchant or user adoption is going out and using Bitcoin yourself. I try to get all the stuff that I can with Bitcoin because it's a super good currency. And
Absolutely.
if I go to the farmer's market or the local farmer and ask him, hey, can I get your tomatoes, your potatoes, or whatever for Bitcoin in exchange? If they say yes, well, perfect. And then continue building that relationship, right? Showing them how it works, supporting them in their path towards discovery. This is something that you can do, and you are the one that will manifest change in this world.
Yes, absolutely. And, you know, moving forward, I see certain things happen where maybe a wallet will come out on the Google Play Store and you'll be able to download the wallet and then fund a payment channel straight up front by an in-app purchase. And it'll just fund it and be there. And then so a shop owner could download it, have a channel that's there, and you can start paying it or open up a channel. I mean, they don't even need, they could join a channel, but it's you know, all these things will happen. I'm super fascinated to see how people will invent better and better UXs around this technology.
Oh, that is a great use case. Having a direct exchange of fiat to Bitcoin on Lightning via the purchasing of a program, of a software, of an app. That is cool. Because I do think that this is one fundamental hindrance in the easy user adoption of Lightning Network, is that for those people who do not yet hodl Bitcoin, which is the vast majority of human civilization, right? They do not hodl Bitcoin on chain. So they cannot easily open a channel because they need to have a Bitcoin on chain to make the funding transaction for the 2of2 multi-sig. So you need to first onboard on chain and then in a second step onboard on Lightning, which is twice as complicated, probably, you know, even exponential.
Exactly.
So the question that I have, and I don't think that it's possible yet, but again, permissionless innovation, is having a onboarding process that gives you control over a Lightning payment channel without you necessarily having to do the on-chain transaction yourself.
Yes.
I don't know if that's possible. Do you know something more about that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. We'll see. I would imagine that you could have like a Google Play payment, and that would trigger some sort of a smart contract that would then send send Bitcoin and open up a channel, but they would have to know the public key. That public key would be broadcast from the wallet that just been done. I mean, look, it's all possible. It really is. It's all possible. It's just about message passing properly and in an encrypted fashion. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm super, super excited.
Oh yes, this is fascinating and mind-blowing stuff, and we are rediscovering Bitcoin. I to this day, I remember my first Bitcoin transaction on chain, and I absolutely do remember the first Lightning transaction on chain, off chain.
Yeah.
On testnet, late November, buying some Starbucks coffee.
Yes.
And I was geeking like a little schoolgirl because I
Yeah.
was so excited. This
Yeah.
really is magical internet money. It already was back then, and it's so much more is right now. Actually getting physical stuff, real valuable stuff with main net, main Lightning net, main Bitcoin, true Bitcoin, money proper, which is amazing.
Absolutely. I got that same giddy feeling when we launched Lightning on Vaultoro, and I tested it out, and I sent, and on an exchange, I mean, it was our exchange, but seeing the number just go plop on the exchange, like, how many times have you been waiting and thinking, God, I want to trade out, like it's at the top or it's at the bottom, or I want to buy, whatever. And then you have to sit there and wait 6 confirmations. And you're like, oh, this is boring. It was like, bloop, chung, there it is, like ready to use. Fantastic. And I mean, I just cannot wait to see what innovation comes out of it. And we are, like you said, rediscovering Bitcoin. Yeah. Beautiful.
And this opens up so many possibilities. Like, just look at Satoshi's place. A wall of pixels. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Pay per pixel. If you want to change it, pay for it. In Satoshis. Quite literally. And this means like you have now a free market for pixels. A free market for example, advertising pixels. So you could say on every website, advertisers can buy a pixel with the Lightning Network and promote their wares. And if the user would like to get rid of this advertising, well, then he buys the pixel and just puts a white pixel on there, so he doesn't see the advertising.
Amazing.
All the marketing problems, all the advertising problems, and that's just one of the probably more boring thoughts that you can come up with this new tech.
Yeah, I mean, another great use. A friend of mine here, Meinhard, he created Satoshi Pay back in the day, a long time ago, and the dream was to do nano payments, and of course that turned out not to be such a good dream on chain. But these use cases, and he developed some great software back in the day where basically instead of a paywall, it was a type of paywall. But what would happen? You'd get to the article. You'd see the first paragraph, and as you scroll down, every paragraph had a little was just a block with a lock, and as you scroll down, it would flip and remove a couple of satoshis from the wallet, and so you could keep scrolling down, and if you scroll down quickly, it would just leave everything locked until you sort of stopped, and then it would flip that one to see if you wanted to just read the end. But these use cases are really great because it allows for nano transactions and microtransactions. And microtransactions has been a dream of the internet for a long, long time. And, we really have, the internet is made up of two things. It's made up of data and it's made up of money. And the data side we've got down. It's awesome. I mean, look at it. We're talking, a lot of people can stream 4K videos live on Netflix. They can, it's solved. Amazing, amazing stuff. Money, we're sending trillions of dollars around the world using 1950s technology. It's ludicrous. Every time I have to pay someone, I have to effectively give them my private keys, which is my credit card numbers. And then what do they come up with? The security? What smart ass at Visa at a meeting said, guys, we're getting way too many credit cards stolen. And then some idiot goes, I've got the answer. What we do is we take the credit card, we turn it around, and on the back, we have 3 more numbers. How's that? And everyone claps and does, yes, that'll solve it. I mean, it's ludicrous. It's the most stupid system in the world. We're still using it, right? So,
but look, that is a second factor. The first factor is the front side of the card.
Yeah.
The second factor is the back side. Two-factor authentication. Duh.
Genius. I mean, it's ludicrous, right? And credit cards have these huge fees, and so microtransactions were never a thing, and microtransactions could have been used a long time ago. Could have been long. I mean, there was great ideas back in the dot-com bubble days even, and these are things that PayPal even tried to solve, but couldn't solve it. And this is something that Lightning Network will solve, because paying per pixel, that's we've arrived. Now we've arrived at micropayments on the internet, and this takes us to when the financial part of the internet, which is a vast part of the internet, it's a huge part of the internet, and will be more so now because it's been throttled for a long time, will actually evolve to be something a lot bigger and a lot better.
If you think that the internet was a big deal, the internet of information, well, information are cool and all, right? We should share it.
Yeah.
But money, that's a whole nother ballgame.
Yeah.
And having a pure sound money as a fundamental and strong base, that is beautiful. And having then on top of that such a magical payment system where, and again, if you have a direct payment channel, there are 0.0000 nothing fees.
Yeah.
Zero, period, nothing.
Yeah.
For billions transactions per minute, at the speed of light, as fast as your computer can sign something, right? A signing algorithm, which is nothing, a little bit of propagation, maybe over a mesh network, maybe over a satellite, we don't know. That is insane.
Over a Bluetooth mesh network even. I mean, we can, it's phenomenal. I love the concepts of mesh networks. We built one back when Napster was being shut down in Sydney. We built one that reached from, I don't know if many people know Sydney very well, but we built one from North Sydney, and it reached all the way to Bondi Beach. And there was a heap of nodes in it, and it was basically made out of Pringle packets on roofs with antennas, with Wi-Fi antennas in the Pringle packets to make them a bit more directional. And it was so cool because this network was sharing MP3s all day long, and it was so cool. And this, mesh networks, I think, are something that really need to come, because that will take the internet to the next level. I mean, look, just if you open your little Wi-Fi button here, and you see every time 1,000 different Wi-Fi networks around you, you just think, what? Why are we still using ISPs? Why are we still bothering with ISPs? Sure, country to country, but look, even that we can send up. We can do satellites now privately. We don't need state satellites anymore. We could have a competition between satellites. We can have provable open source satellites. We can do all this, folks.
And imagine this, okay? So you generate a private key on your cold card wallet, completely air-gapped, right? Then you go to the Wasabi wallet, and you, after you've done a coin join, you go and make a normal join market transaction right there, generate the transaction, go back to your cold wallet, sign it here, the partially signed Bitcoin transaction, and then you go further and propagate this then signed transaction over these GoTennas, right, over a mesh network, and ultimately you end up sending it over a satellite to all the other Bitcoin nodes. This is happening today, right now. It is insane. This is cypherpunk utopia.
Yeah, phenomenal, beautiful, beautiful. I'm super excited about this whole thing. You've got me all riled up here, Max.
But it is really magical. Internet money is an understatement. It really is.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm gonna have to cut it off, but it's been just an absolute pleasure to be here and talk with you and see the chat here. We haven't had that many people chatting, but they've all had great comments and a couple of trolls.
The troll box is always someone lurking in there. But nice to keep the conversation going in there as well.
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for the great conversation, and I look forward to the next one. That's for sure.
Well, thank you very much, Josh, for joining me here today. And you can find out more about Josh here on Twitter at Vaultoro. So that is quite nice. Go to vaultoro.com to buy gold, right? With Bitcoin. Use Bitcoin actually. This is how you should hedge, right? If you want to get rid of your precious Satoshis, well, buy some precious gold. That's quite nice.
Yeah,
and you can get always, a gram for 0.0053 Bitcoin. That's nothing.
Yeah, and you can always go back to Bitcoin when you feel like you need to. And this was really important. This is actually one of the reasons why we chose gold, is because it's allocated physical bullion. That means it's in your name as your legal property. It's not on the exchange's books. So if anything happens to us, and you shouldn't trust exchanges, it's just we're all startups, man. So many startups fail, right? So why would you trust startups? So what we wanted to do was to say, look, if something ever happened to us, your gold is off of our books. Liquidators cannot touch our clients' assets. They're nothing to do with the exchange. This is very, very unlike fiat exchanges, because fiat is not only the fiat is owned by the exchange legally, but it's actually not even legally owned by the exchange. The bank is the legal custodian of that money. So the bank has that money, and that bank is also speculating with a reserve depending on where you are. But if you're in Europe, it's 1% they keep on deposit. So rather than doing that, you can trade into physical allocated bullion. It's sitting there, it's in a vault, it's not being speculated with. It's just there. It's audited by one of the largest auditing firms in the world, BDO International. It's insured by Helvetia of Switzerland to 100%. So even if the Ocean's 12-11 team get in there somehow with it's one of the most secure vaults it's an incredible vaulting facility. It's actually a private vaulting facility, so it's bank independent. Its security rating is so high that the only other vault that has the same security rating is the European Central Bank vaulting facility. So you're in really good hands, and it's I'm just so proud of the little baby that we've grown here with our small team, because it's just so good to see that gold and crypto can work together instead of being like against each other, which is just stupid.
Well, yes, and Vaultoro is just one perfect example of a true Bitcoin company, right? A true sound entrepreneur who is building a fundamentally sound business that is based on best practices and good self-regulation and transparency and full reserve and soundness. I hope, of course, don't trust, but I hope that this is not a Ponzi exit scheme, multi-level marketing.
Well, I mean, we've been around for 5 years through thick and thin. We've just, and I've been in Bitcoin a lot longer. I'm really in it for making a difference, and you should always don't trust and verify as much as you can. But in some ways, when you're on an exchange and you want to hedge into something, let's say you want to save some of the gains you've made in crypto, in case you think it's right, it's going to pop, then jump into gold and then jump back into Bitcoin when it's at the bottom. So it's an order book, and we don't set the prices as well. That's really important. There's people like Gold Money that are basically an OTC market, and they are always the counterparty. So if you have a large holding with them, they could decide if you want to exchange that back, which they don't actually allow. You can never get crypto back, but let's say they did. They could just set the price really high, and you'd be stuck having to pay that. So it's really important that you have an order book, so that you have a constant flow of thousands of people finding a true price, finding a price discovery, having a price discovery system based on the metal or the counter asset. Free markets, baby.
Oh, absolutely. Free the market, free the world, right? So Piers, absolutely. Check out the Vaultoro Bitcoin to gold exchange. Change sound money for sound money, and not sound money for weak money. Why would you? That's nonsensical. Come on.
Why would you? Thanks very much, Max, and peace. Peace out to the world. Good luck. Keep building.
See you on the next show, fellas. Bye bye.
Bye bye.